All right, so we're diving deep today into how to actually lead Gen Z.
Yeah, it's more than just managing them, right? It's a whole different ballgame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to look at all this research we've got and try to crack the code of this generation that's about to, totally flip the workplace on its head.
And it's fascinating how Gen Z isn't just coming in and demanding things like flexibility or whatever.
Right.
Their expectations are coming from a completely different way of thinking about work and leadership. Even the role of technology is different for them.
Totally. So we're going to unpack not just who they are, but why they are the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
How they're different from millennials and Gen X. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, what can you actually do about it?
Right. How do we create a workplace where they actually thrive, not just survive?
Yeah, because they're not going anywhere.
Nope, they're the future.
Okay, so first things first. Who is Gen Z? We know they were born, between the mid-90s and the early 2000s?
Yeah, roughly. But it's way more than just birthdays.
For sure.
I mean, think about it. They're the first true digital natives.
Right.
They've never known a world without smartphones or social media or instant information at their fingertips.
That's crazy when you think about it.
It's not just that they're tech savvy, it's that their brains are literally wired differently.
So it's like saying we grew up riding dinosaurs compared to them.
Pretty much. That's why we sometimes struggle to understand their perspective.
Okay, I get it. It's a whole different world they grew up in. But it's not just the digital stuff, right? They've also lived through some pretty major events, like the 2008 recession.
Oh yeah, and the pandemic.
That's heavy stuff to experience while you're growing up.
It definitely shaped their worldview. I mean, they saw firsthand how fragile traditional systems can be.
Right, like economic instability
Yeah.
and global uncertainty.
Exactly. It made them much more pragmatic and security conscious than previous generations.
Okay, so valuing stability, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
But does that mean they lack ambition? Are they just playing it safe all the time?
Not at all. They're super ambitious, but in a different way. Their ambition is focused on finding purpose in their work and having the flexibility to live life on their own terms.
And constantly learning and growing, right?
Absolutely. They're all about self-improvement.
Okay, so let's bust some myths here. Are they really just millennials on steroids? I hear that one a lot.
Uh-huh. That's a funny way to put it, but it's not entirely accurate. While millennials were all about work-life balance, Gen Z is taking it a step further.
How so?
They're blurring the lines completely. For them, work isn't a separate thing. It's integrated into their lives, their values, their online identities. It's all connected.
So remote work, hybrid schedules, that's non-negotiable for them.
Pretty much. Our research shows that 73% of Gen Z would seriously consider leaving a job if it lacked flexibility.
Wow. Okay, so that's not just a preference, it's a deal breaker.
Exactly. It's a fundamental expectation.
All right, so we're starting to get a picture of Gen Z here. Digitally fluent, pragmatic, purpose-driven, and they know what they want.
Yeah.
But where do they fit into this whole multi-generational workplace? What about those generational clashes we hear so much about?
Well, you've got baby boomers who came up in a totally different world.
Right.
Job stability, loyalty to one company, that's what defines success for them.
Which is the opposite of what Gen Z is looking for.
Exactly. And that can create a lot of friction.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's like they're speaking different languages. What about Gen X? Where do they land in all of this?
Gen X is kind of stuck in the middle.
Uh-huh. Oh, no.
They value independence and work-life balance, but they're not as digitally native as Gen Z.
Gotcha.
So they often end up bridging the gap, translating between the generations.
That sounds exhausting.
It can be, but it's also an important role.
All right, so we've got this multi-generational workforce, each with their own values and communication styles and ways of working. How do we even begin to manage all of that?
Well, it's about more than just managing different generations. It's about fundamentally changing how we think about leadership itself.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Gen Z isn't just showing up for a paycheck. They want to be a part of something bigger. They want to learn and grow and make a real impact.
So how do we create that kind of environment? What are some practical things leaders can do starting today?
That's the million-dollar question, and that's what we're going to unpack next.
All right, I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Let's get practical.
All right, so we've talked about the challenges of leading Gen Z. Now let's get into some solutions.
Yeah, let's talk strategy.
Okay, so we've identified 4 key strategies that can really make a difference in engaging and leading Gen Z.
4. Okay, lay it on me.
The first one is all about creating a supportive work environment.
Okay, supportive work environment makes sense, but how do you actually do that? Especially online. I mean, my generation is still figuring out how to create a healthy digital culture, let alone catering it to Gen Z.
Right. That's a great point. It's something a lot of organizations are still grappling with. But I think it starts with recognizing that for Gen Z, the digital workspace, it's not just a tool, it's an extension of their personal lives.
So we can't treat it like some separate sterile environment.
Exactly. It's like, think about it this way. You wouldn't invite someone to your house and then just ignore them or make them feel unwelcome.
Yeah. Well, I might at least offer them a snack.
Exactly. It's about hospitality, even in the digital realm. Make sure your online spaces are welcoming, inclusive, easy to navigate.
So clear communication guidelines are a must.
Absolutely no one wants to be bombarded with confusing messages or feel lost in a sea of emails, right?
A sea of emails. Oh, the humanity.
Right. So think about using visuals, infographics, videos, even memes, anything to make information more digestible and engaging. Remember, Gen Z is a visual generation.
Got it. A wall of text just won't cut it anymore.
Nope, not for this generation. And speaking of inclusivity, it's not just about being politically correct. It's about creating an online space where everyone feels comfortable being themselves, sharing their ideas, and feeling valued for their unique perspectives.
Okay, so we're talking inclusive language, making sure diverse voices are represented.
Yeah.
Everyone has equal access to information.
All of that. And don't forget about accessibility for people with disabilities. It's about being mindful and proactive.
Okay. Inclusive language, diverse voices, accessibility. Got it. What else can we do to build a more inclusive digital culture?
Think about community building. Create online spaces where Gen Z employees can connect with each other, share ideas, build relationships that go beyond just work tasks.
So like online forums, social media groups,
Yeah.
even virtual coffee breaks or team building activities.
Exactly. It's about fostering that sense of belonging and camaraderie, even when everyone's working remotely.
Awesome. So we've covered clear communication, inclusivity, and community building. What about the not so fun stuff? Like how do we deal with cyberbullying?
That's crucial. Gen Z is hyper aware of online harassment and they have zero tolerance for it. Leaders need to be proactive in creating a safe and respectful digital environment.
Okay, so we're talking clear policies, swift action against any kind of online bullying.
Yeah,
Creating a culture where people feel comfortable speaking up if they see something wrong.
exactly. It's about setting clear expectations and modeling respectful behavior from the top down. Gen Z can spot a fake a mile away, so authenticity is key.
Okay, so we've tackled the digital side of creating a supportive work environment. What about the physical workspace? Is that even still relevant in a world of remote work?
It absolutely is, especially as we see more hybrid models emerging. The physical office is still a hub for connection, collaboration, culture building.
So what are some tips for creating a physical space that appeals to Gen Z?
Well, think flexibility and adaptability. Gen Z values work-life balance and the freedom to choose how and where they work.
So ditch the rows of cubicles and embrace those open workspaces, collaborative areas, quiet zones for focused work.
You got it. And don't skimp on the technology. Make sure the office is equipped with fast Wi-Fi, plenty of charging stations, access to the latest software and tools.
Because nothing says we don't get you like forcing Gen Z to use outdated tech.
Exactly. It sends the message that you don't value their time or their skills.
Okay, so flexible workspaces, updated technology. What about the overall vibe? Does that matter to Gen Z?
It matters more than you might think. They appreciate offices that are comfortable, aesthetically pleasing, and reflect their values.
So ergonomic furniture, natural light, maybe some plants and artwork to liven things up.
Precisely. It's about creating a space that feels less like a sterile office and more like a place where they actually want to spend time.
Okay, so we've covered the basics, flexible workspaces, updated tech, a welcoming atmosphere. What about building that sense of community in the physical office?
That's so important. Think about those water cooler moments, the chance encounters that spark creativity and collaboration.
Yeah.
We need to design for that, even if people aren't in the office every day.
So team lunches, after-work events, maybe even volunteer opportunities where they can bond and give back to the community together.
Exactly. It's about fostering that sense of camaraderie and shared purpose. And those in-person interactions can be even more meaningful when they're not happening all the time.
I like that. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground on creating a supportive work environment, both digitally and physically.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our second strategy.
Okay, so the second strategy is all about growth and development opportunities. This is where things get really exciting for Gen Z. They're ambitious and eager to learn, so they thrive in environments that support their growth.
So it's not just about giving them a job, it's about giving them a path, a journey.
Exactly. It's about investing in their future, not just filling a position. This means providing a variety of learning opportunities, both formal and informal.
So things like mentorship programs, workshops, online courses, Maybe even sending them to industry conferences.
You got it. And don't underestimate the power of experiential learning. Gen Z learns best by doing so. Give them hands-on projects, let them shadow experienced colleagues, maybe even try out cross-functional assignments.
So less theory, more action.
Absolutely. Let them apply their skills in real-world situations and learn from their experiences.
Makes sense. And I bet that ties in nicely with their desire for purpose and making a real impact.
Absolutely. When they can see how their work contributes to the bigger picture and they're given opportunities to grow and develop their skills, their engagement goes through the roof.
Okay, so we've got formal training, hands-on experience, and what about feedback? We've touched on it a bit, but it seems like it deserves its own spotlight, especially for this generation.
You're absolutely right. Feedback is like oxygen to Gen Z. They thrive on it, they crave it, and they expect it to be frequent, specific, and actionable.
So yearly performance reviews are probably not going to cut it.
Not even close. Gen Z wants ongoing feedback, regular check-ins, informal conversations about their progress. And they're comfortable with digital platforms, so don't be afraid to leverage technology for real-time feedback and communication.
So instant messaging, project management tools, even performance management platforms where they can track their progress and get feedback from multiple sources.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture of continuous feedback where everyone feels comfortable both giving and receiving feedback.
Because ultimately it's about helping them learn, grow, and reach their full potential.
That's the goal.
All right, we've covered supportive work environments and growth opportunities. What about this whole leveraging technology and communication thing? I mean, we know Gen Z is tech savvy, but how do we actually use that to our advantage?
That's where it gets really interesting. It's not just about giving them the latest gadgets. It's about using technology to enhance communication, collaboration, and learning.
So going beyond the basic tools like email and spreadsheets, think interactive platforms, video conferencing, project management software, maybe even gamified learning experiences.
You got it. It's about creating a digital workplace that's engaging, dynamic, and intuitive for Gen Z. We need to speak their language, digitally speaking.
And what about social media? It's not just for marketing anymore, right?
Definitely not. It can be a powerful tool for building community and celebrating successes within the organization.
So using it to share company news, recognize employee achievements, maybe even just create a space for informal interaction and team building.
Exactly. It's about using technology to create a more human and connected work experience, even in the digital world.
I like that. So it's not about the tools themselves, it's about how we use them. We need to adapt our communication styles to resonate with Gen Z's preferences.
Exactly. And one thing to remember is that Gen Z is a very visual generation.
Oh yeah, they've grown up with smartphones, social media, video games. They're used to consuming information in a visually engaging way.
Right. So ditch those long-winded emails and embrace infographics videos, short and snappy presentations. Maybe even sprinkle in a few memes here and there.
Memes. In the workplace.
Hey, if it works, it works. And it's not just about the format. It's about the tone. Gen Z appreciates authenticity, transparency, and humor.
So less corporate jargon, more real talk.
Exactly. Be yourself, show your personality, and don't be afraid to have a little fun. Gen Z wants to connect with leaders who are relatable and human.
Okay, so visually engaging content, authentic communication, and a touch of humor. What else is important?
Well, you gotta be concise and to the point. Gen Z has a short attention span, so get to the point quickly.
Yeah.
Don't bury the important information in a wall of text.
So bullet point summaries.
Yeah.
Maybe even a few emojis to break up the monotony.
You got it. And don't forget about mobile optimization. Gen Z is accessing information primarily through their smartphones, so make sure your communication is mobile friendly.
So short paragraphs, clear headings, easy to read fonts. Make it easy for them to consume information on the go.
That's right. And make sure your communication is interactive. Ask questions, encourage feedback, and create opportunities for dialogue.
Because they don't want to just passively consume information. They want to be a part of the conversation. They want to feel heard and valued.
Exactly. And when you create that kind of two-way communication, you build trust and rapport, which are essential for effective leadership.
Okay, so we've talked about creating a digital workplace that caters to Gen Z's communication style. What about collaboration? We know they thrive in collaborative environments, but how do we actually create a culture of collaboration that works for them?
That's a great question. And it's not as simple as just throwing them into a team project and hoping for the best. We need to understand the dynamics of collaboration in a Gen Z world.
Okay, so where do we begin?
Well, it starts with recognizing that for Gen Z, collaboration isn't just a work style, it's a way of life. They've grown up in a digital world where collaboration is seamlessly integrated into everything they do.
Think about online gaming, social media, collaborative projects. They're used to working together to achieve common goals, often across geographical boundaries and time zones.
Exactly. They're comfortable with virtual communication tools, they're adept at sharing ideas and feedback online, and they're used to working with people from diverse backgrounds and perspectives.
So it's not about forcing them to collaborate. It's about creating an environment where collaboration feels natural and intuitive, both online and offline.
That's right. Think about open workspaces, flexible seating arrangements, digital tools that facilitate seamless collaboration. But it's not just about the physical space or the technology. It's about fostering a culture of trust and mutual respect.
Because even the best tools and the most beautiful office won't make a difference if people don't feel comfortable sharing their ideas and working together effectively.
Exactly. And it's important to provide clear guidelines and expectations for collaboration. Even in a collaborative environment, everyone needs to know their role, their responsibilities, and how their work contributes to the overall goal.
So it's about striking that balance between freedom and structure.
Exactly. And don't forget to celebrate team successes. When Gen Z sees that their collaborative efforts are leading to tangible results, it reinforces the value of teamwork and motivates them to continue working together effectively.
Makes sense. A little recognition goes a long way. Okay, so we've talked about creating a collaborative environment. What about feedback? We know Gen Z thrives on feedback, but how can we give feedback in a way that's both constructive and motivating?
That's an excellent question, and it's one that a lot of leaders struggle with because Gen Z has a different relationship with feedback than previous generations.
So what's the secret?
Well, first of all, it's important to recognize that Gen Z is accustomed to receiving feedback in real time. They've grown up with social media, instant messaging, online gaming. They're used to getting immediate feedback on their actions and decisions.
So waiting for an annual performance review to share feedback is probably not the best approach.
Not at all. Gen Z wants frequent, ongoing feedback, not just a once-a-year evaluation. They want to know how they're doing, what they can improve, how they can continue to grow and develop their skills.
So think regular check-ins, informal feedback sessions, and maybe even leveraging those digital platforms we talked about for real-time feedback and communication.
You got it. And when you're giving feedback, make sure it's specific, actionable, and focused on growth.
Because they don't want to just know what they did wrong. They want to know how to do it better next time.
Exactly. They're not afraid of constructive criticism as long as it's delivered in a way that's helpful and supportive.
Okay, so frequent feedback specific and actionable advice. But what about positive feedback? Actually, that's important too.
Absolutely. Gen Z thrives on recognition and appreciation. So celebrate their successes, big and small, and let them know that their hard work is noticed and appreciated.
Because everyone likes to feel valued, right?
Exactly. And a little praise goes a long way, especially for a generation that's used to instant gratification.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground on fostering collaboration and feedback. Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier. Gen Z's top priorities in the workplace. We know they value purpose, flexibility, growth opportunities. But let's dig a little deeper. What do those priorities actually look like in action?
That's a great question, because it's one thing to understand the concepts, but it's another thing to see how they play out in real life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's bring those priorities to life for our listeners.
Mm.
Okay, so let's talk about purpose. We know Gen Z wants their work to have meaning, but how do we as leaders actually make that happen?
Well, it starts with transparency. I think Gen Z really values open and honest communication. They don't want to be kept in the dark about the company's goals and how their work contributes to the bigger picture.
So it's not enough to just give them a task list and say, get it done. We need to explain the why behind the work.
Exactly. Help them understand how their role, even if it seems small, connects to the overall mission of the organization. And involve them in discussions about the company's values, social impact initiatives, that kind of thing.
Because for a lot of Gen Zers, purpose and passion kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely. When they can see that their work is aligned with their values and is making a positive difference in the world, it's a huge motivator.
Okay, so transparency is key for creating a sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
What about flexibility? How do we show Gen Z that we get it, we value their need for flexibility?
It's more than just offering remote work or flexible hours. It's about creating a culture of trust and autonomy.
So less micromanaging, more empowering them to manage their own time and workload.
Exactly. Give them clear goals and expectations, but don't breathe down their necks about every little detail. Trust them to find the best way to get the work done, whether it's from the office, their home, a coffee shop, whatever works for them.
I can see how that could be a challenge for some leaders who are used to that more traditional top-down management style.
It definitely requires a shift in mindset, but it's essential if you want to attract and retain top Gen Z talent. And remember, flexibility isn't just about location and hours. It's also about offering a variety of work arrangements.
So things like part-time positions, project-based work, even job-sharing arrangements.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that one size does not fit all, and being willing to adapt to the individual needs of your employees.
Okay, so purpose and flexibility check. What about growth opportunities? How do we make sure we're providing the kind of learning and development that Gen Z is looking for?
We'll think about mentorship programs where they can learn from more experienced colleagues and get guidance on their career paths.
Right. Mentorship is huge for them.
It is, and offer workshops and training programs that focus on both hard skills and soft skills, like communication, collaboration, problem solving.
And what about those online courses and industry conferences we talked about earlier?
Those are great options too, especially for Gen Z who are very comfortable with online learning. And always be on the lookout for opportunities for informal learning and on-the-job development.
So give them challenging projects, opportunities to present their work, maybe even encourage them to attend industry events and share what they learn with their colleagues.
Exactly. Create a culture of continuous learning where everyone feels supported and encouraged to grow.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here today. We talked about purpose, flexibility, growth, opportunities, all those things that are so important to Gen Z. But if you had to leave our listeners with just one key takeaway about leading this generation, what would it be?
I think the most important thing to remember is that Gen Z isn't just the future of work. They're here now. And they're already changing the game. They're bringing a whole new set of values, expectations, and skills to the table. And they're not afraid to challenge the status quo.
So it's up to us as leaders to adapt, evolve, and create a workplace that embraces their unique strengths.
Exactly. And when we do that, we don't just unlock their potential, we create a better workplace for everyone.
Well said. I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Gen Z. And remember, the future of work is in our hands. Let's make it a future where everyone can thrive.
Absolutely.